Hey everyone, I just realized as I was editing the video that I never did an introduction to it. So you're going to see me outside. I'm at my in-laws house right now, and so I'm outside on their porch. Just thought I would record this to let you know that this video is some breakfast ideas that do not include eggs. And so I know the price of eggs have skyrocketed for most of us, and a lot of us have had to back off on using eggs for breakfast and just be careful with them, and just because of the cost. And it varies from state to state. We are in Atlanta right now, and the price of eggs are actually cheaper than where we live in Florida. So it does vary, but still. So I just wanted to share this video with you. Come on real quick. You'll have to excuse how tired I look because we have been running around shopping all day. But I just wanted to do a quick intro to let you guys know what's in this video. And then I'm going to continue to work on some additional breakfast videos just to give people some other options. But to keep this one fairly reasonable in time, I just wanted to just do 3 items today. You're going to see bagels, you're going to see a breakfast scramble, and you are going to see something else. Oh, sorry, biscuits. Sorry, I record everything in a couple days out from each other, and so it's been a whirlwind with our travels. So anyways, just check that video out now, and thank you so much for being here. See you guys. First, I started with making butter biscuits, also known as butter swim biscuits. To this recipe, I am going to be adding in 2.5 cups of milk, and I'm actually creating my own buttermilk. I did not have any in the house, or I did actually, I'm sorry, but I didn't have enough for this recipe. And so instead of going out to purchase some, because this is a pantry challenge, I decided to create my own. So it is 2.5 cups of milk, and it's going to be just a little over 2 tablespoons of vinegar. I probably should have gone with 3, and actually, I think I tried to create 3 by guessing how much I accidentally dumped in when I overfilled the tablespoon. But you can do 3 tablespoons of vinegar to the 2.5 cups. It's usually 1 tablespoon per 1 cup of milk to create the buttermilk. You just add it, stir, and let it set aside for about 10 minutes to allow it to curdle and turn into buttermilk. Once that is set and ready, I'm going to go ahead and get my butter melting. Now, I have seen some recipes that tell you to just put the butter in the pan and stick in the oven. I found that it's so much faster to just go ahead and melt the butter in the microwave versus doing that, because these biscuits come together so quickly that you actually don't need that step. You might as well just put it in the microwave and melt it. It's so much easier. So to my bowl, I am adding in 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour, and to that I will also be adding in 4 teaspoons of baking powder as well. And so along with that, I'm going to also be adding in 4 teaspoons of sugar and then 2 teaspoons of salt.
I've been living life right like I could just die any minute. Don't pull right down the side, PCH, country limit. I don't need a guide, follow lights, take me where I want to visit. Are you alive? Or just breathing? 'Cause I've been living life right like I could.
Now that I have all of my dry ingredients in the bowl, I'm going to go ahead and give them a good stir. That way I can make sure that the sugar, baking powder, and salt are all mixed throughout the flour. That way it will help the biscuits to bake up properly. Now that that's done, I've set that aside and I've grabbed my melted butter. And as you can see, it doesn't take long to put the dry ingredients together. And so this is why I opt to melt my butter in the microwave. But you, of course, can melt it in your oven, on your stovetop. Really, it's kind of up to you, but you definitely want to make sure that your butter is melted. Do not put this batter on top of just cut up pieces of butter. It is key to giving this biscuit the crunchiness that comes from cooking in the melted butter. So now I have my quote-unquote buttermilk that I created, and I will say that you definitely want to actually add maybe a touch more vinegar than initially the 3 tablespoons that I thought. It didn't quite curdle up like I had expected. Now, maybe my vinegar is bad, although I'm not really sure vinegar goes bad. But either way, it didn't quite work, but it's still going to have that tang that I was looking for. Now, as I've looked at other recipes, what I've discovered is a lot of people will comment on how there's not enough liquid in the batter. And it doesn't quite, and it takes longer to cook. The last time I made this recipe, I actually had true buttermilk in the house, and doing the 2.5 cups of buttermilk worked perfectly, and they baked up and they were wonderful. We enjoyed them with sausage gravy and it was great. What I discovered through this recipe is that by creating my own buttermilk, which normally works just fine, it actually is too much liquid. So if you make your own buttermilk, you'll want to decrease it to 2 cups of milk and not 2.5. And so I decided to leave this in the video because I wanted to show you guys that sometimes things just don't always turn out the way you want them to, or you have to alter the recipe. And as you can see, the batter is really thin, and I almost trashed it, but I was like, you know what, let's just leave it and let's go ahead and cook it and let's see what happens to it. So I will say, if you're using real buttermilk that you've bought from the store, make it 2.5 cups. If you create it yourself, what there's nothing wrong with doing, you'll want to decrease it to 2 cups. And you're going to see in this video that I made the biscuits again. All the same steps, except for I changed the quantity of the homemade buttermilk down to 2 cups. And you'll be able to see that the difference that makes.
Red lights, driving at night, windowless ride, feeling alive, nothing in sight, forever in flight, follow those lines, we'll make it this time.
Okay, now that everything is whisked up, I'm going to go ahead and pour the batter over the butter. And as you can see, it's really thin. You'll be able to see the difference here in just a moment of the two. Now, typically with the recipe, it'll tell you to go ahead and pre-cut your biscuits. And it did not work. It was way too soupy. And so I've got those in the oven, and now I'm going to be starting on the next batch. But here is the difference. I am actually only using 2 cups of milk to create my buttermilk versus the 2.5 cups. And again, you will see at the end what a big difference this makes between the two. So this is why I decided to leave it in the video so you guys can see it. So again, other than that, all the other ingredients are the same. It's still 2.5 cups of flour. It is still 1 stick of melted butter. It is still 4 teaspoons of baking powder, 4 teaspoons of sugar, and 2 teaspoons of salt. All of that is still the same.
I don't need a guide, follow the lights, take me where I want to visit. Are you alive? Or just breathing? Flashing red lights, driving at night, windowless ride, feeling alive, nothing in sight, forever in flight, follow those lines, we'll make it this time. Blurry street lights, work as a guide to memories that we're making tonight. Oh yeah, we'll make it tonight. Yeah, I'll do anything that I feel like I wanna do. I'm living life like I got nothing left to prove. No end in sight, just always staying on the move. I'll go all night if that's just what I gotta do. Life's too short to care about what you can't afford. Memories are in what you explore, so just don't be ignored. Go ask for more, go ask for more. 'Cause I've been living life right like I could just die any minute. Going for a ride down the side, PCH, country limit. I don't need a guide, follow lights, take me where I wanna visit. Are you alive?
Now that the butter is melted and in the pan, I'm adding in the 2 cups of the homemade buttermilk. And as you can see, it looks like regular milk. So I think that while the amount of liquid is correct. I think something was wrong with my vinegar. I don't think it must be expired, although I don't feel like it is. I feel like I just bought it, but I'm not 100% sure. Either way, if you don't even create a buttermilk with it, it'll be okay. You just want to make sure that if you're adding in milk, you only use the 2 cups versus the 2.5 cups. And as you can see, it is already much thicker than the first set of biscuits that I made. And so I think that's key. Now, every other recipe I've read that usually calls for 2 cups of buttermilk, it is never enough. And I always wind up adding more. So I don't quite understand it. I'm not 100% sure if it's just the thickness of the buttermilk, which is why you always have to add more because milk is thinner. But either way, this is just what I discovered. And I've made these biscuits a lot, but I do typically purchase buttermilk for this particular recipe. And again, but this is a pantry challenge. And I just wanted to use up what I had and create my own. But typically when I make a red velvet cake, I just make my own buttermilk and have never had a problem. So I don't really 100% know, but I did need to wind up whisking it up. It was kind of clumpy. This is not a pancake batter, so you don't want to, a few little lumps are fine, but you don't want to leave a bunch of lumps in it. So just give it a good whisk and then go ahead and pour it on top of your butter mixture and then pop it in the oven. And you are going to be cooking this at 450 degrees. And it's going to bake for roughly 35 to 40 minutes. I believe mine usually take 40, almost to 45. Every oven's a little bit different. So definitely just check them at the 35-minute mark, but know that you may go up to 45 minutes to bake these biscuits. And they just take longer than the standard biscuit because you're making one whole pan of biscuits versus making individual ones that cook within 20 to 25 minutes. So you're basically almost doubling the time because this is one large pan and you're cooking it in butter, but it is worth the time and the little bit of effort. These are really easy to make and put together. A lot of times I'll do these if I don't feel like making individual biscuits because I have another way of doing those that take just a touch longer. So I feel like these are definitely worth the time and the effort, the little bit of effort that it takes, I should say. So I pre-score them into making 9 biscuits. You don't have to do that, but that's just what I do with it, and it seems to work really well. And as you can see, I've got both the biscuits in the oven, and then they are now finishing up. I went and did a couple of things in the house while they were baking, and I'm going to show you the difference between the 2 biscuits and how they turned out. So the one on the left is the one that was only 2 cups of buttermilk, and then the one on the right is the one that is 2.5, and you can see it baked up very differently. Now when you pull them out of the oven, you are going to want to check and make sure, just stick a little toothpick in, make sure they're done in the center. And here's what I discovered: the one that has more milk in it wasn't quite done at the bottom. Even after 45 minutes, you can kind of see it on camera. It was still kind of a little gooey. Now you could cut off the top and still eat the top and it would be totally fine. So you're not fully wasting it. But I really just wanted to share this with you guys so you can see what happens. Sometimes this is how it goes when you're trying to create a recipe or you're testing out a new one and there can be problems with it. You could let it try to bake a little bit longer, which I did, but it still wasn't changing how done it was going to get. It just kind of stayed like that. So this is the second batch, the one that I only used 2 cups of my homemade buttermilk with, and this one turned out much better. And as you can see, the butter gets the top, the sides, the bottom super crispy. This is the best biscuit recipe we like to use when I make sausage gravy and biscuits. It's just that crunchy layer that it gives really holds up well against the sausage gravy. And as you can see with this one baked up so much better. It was extremely hot. I literally had just pulled them out of the oven when I filmed this, and so it was really hot. that had baked up beautifully. It was done all the way through. So just wanted to do a side-by-side comparison for you guys so you can see. Now, we ate some of the first batch, though we didn't eat as much of it. But we ate all of the second batch, and I will show you guys how we ate those throughout the week. And it was actually the first couple of days of the week that we ate the biscuits, because they are only good for about 3 days. They don't last very long. So if you have a small family, you may want to consider cutting and, freezing some of them. If you have a big family, they'd probably be gone in a day. This biscuit was so hot that I was having a hard time cutting into it. I probably should have waited to cut in to the biscuit, but I had to get going with my day, so I wanted to go ahead and cut into it and show you guys. Plus, we wanted to enjoy a little bit of this biscuit before heading out the door, and so I just top it with some homemade strawberry jam, and I can link that video below. I make strawberry freezer jam, and it is so good. I also make homemade grape jelly, and while it is just, I use Welch's grape juice, it actually tastes so much better than the grape jelly that you buy at the store. I have no idea why, but it does, and it's our daughter's favorite, and so that's what I make. So I top a little bit of the strawberry and then a little bit of the grape, and we really enjoyed it.
Oh yeah, we'll make it tonight. Yeah, I'll do anything that I feel like I wanna do. I'm living life like I got nothing left to prove. No end in sight, just always staying on the move.
While the jam and jelly is wonderful, I decided the next morning to make a honey butter chicken biscuit, and this was amazing. All I needed was just this honey butter chicken biscuit. I did not need to add anything else to it. I just took a chicken patty from my freezer. I put it in the toaster oven and got it nice and crispy. Topped the biscuit with some butter and honey, and I thoroughly enjoyed this biscuit. It was nice to change the biscuits up, so it just feels like you're having something different every morning and you're not having the same old thing. The next morning I made a bacon biscuit. Now keep in mind, this is a no egg breakfast, so it was another way to utilize the biscuits and then change up the flavor. The following morning I made a sausage biscuit, and then I had some strawberries and bananas on the side. And now to change it up even more, I am going to be making a breakfast scramble using potatoes, peppers, onions, and sausage. Now, potatoes are one of my favorite foods. I just love potatoes in general. And so making breakfast potatoes, I used to do it all the time, and really pretty much had the same thing for breakfast, I think every day for months on end. And so now I try to change it up a little bit and do some different things. And so sometimes my potatoes are just a plain old potato fried up, and other times I'll add peppers and onions like I'm doing with this scramble. This was a huge hit. Now, one way I do the potatoes is I actually put them in the microwave and par cook them ahead of time. First of all, it just helps when you go to fry the potato to get it crispy on the outside and cooked all the way through a lot faster than if this was a raw potato. I typically never fry a raw potato anymore because it just takes too long to get it to fry in the pan, and we're talking about breakfast, and so sometimes, you know what, you're hungry in the morning and you want to eat sooner rather than later. So I'm going to go ahead and get all of these potatoes chopped up. I'm also going to go ahead and chop up the pepper and onion as well.
Just always staying on the move. I'll go all night if that's just what I gotta do. Life's too short to care about what you can't afford. Memories are in what you explore, so just don't be ignored. Go ask for more, go ask for more. 'Cause I've been living life right like I could just die any minute. Going for a ride down the side, PCH country limit. I don't need a guide, follow lights, take me where I wanna visit. Are you alive? I'll just breathe in. 'Cause I've been living life right like I could just die fast. They wanna be that someone on the screen at last. They ain't looking inside for their needs in life. They wanna be liked by everybody in sight. But trust me, being free ain't spotlights. No, it's long nights and it's long fights with yourself all the time to get your mind right. But if you put in the work, you can find the light, alright? I'll do anything that I feel like I wanna do. I'm living life like I got nothing left to prove. No end in sight, just always staying on the move. I'll go all night if that's just what I gotta do. Life's too short to care about what you can't afford. Memories are in what you explore, so just don't be ignored. Go ask for more, go ask for more. 'Cause I've been living life right like I could just die any minute. Going for a ride down the side, PCH, country limit. I don't need a guide, follow lights, take me where I wanna visit. Are you alive? Or just breathing? 'Cause I've been living life right like I could just die any minute. Going for a ride down the side.
Now that all of that is ready, I'm going to go ahead and get my sausage cooking. So what I did is I only had one roll of sausage, and so I decided to split this between the two. And so this is actually the sausage I used when I made my sausage biscuits. I don't always, when I film as I edit, put it in order as I filmed it, so that's why it might look a little funny, but that is the same sausage. So I decided to split it between the two. But if you're not going to make biscuits or have any other need, you can absolutely go ahead and cook up your entire roll of sausage. So before I get the sausage in the pan, I want to get the potatoes, onions, and peppers going, because they're going to take a touch longer to cook than the sausage will, because I want to get the potatoes nice and crispy, but also get the peppers and onions cooked through and get a nice little browning on them as well, so they're tender when we eat them. Okay, and now I'm going to start this sausage. So as you can see, I just have half the tube of sausage. If you like sausage patties, you can use those. If you have sausage links, it doesn't really matter. We typically just buy sausage by the roll. It's how we like it. And I have found that this Walmart brand of sausage is actually really good, and it really is less than half of what it is for other name brand sausages, and I have found that we really like the taste. So we pretty much, if my Walmart has it in stock, we stick with this sausage. So I do want to get a nice sear on the sausage, and so that way you've got the nice crunchy pieces of sausage in the breakfast scramble.
Flashing red lights, driving at night, windowless ride, feeling alive, nothing in sight, forever in flight, follow those lines, we'll make it this time, blurry street lights, work as a guide to memories that we're making tonight, oh yeah, we'll make it tonight, yeah. I'll do anything that I feel like I wanna do, I'm living life like I got nothing.
So while my sausage is still browning, I'm going to go ahead and give my potatoes a good stir. On occasion, I still need to add a touch more olive oil to it, so they will continue to cook, but use that at your discretion. You can also use butter. I kept this dairy-free because our daughter can't have dairy, and so but whatever you want to cook it in, whether it's coconut oil, whether it's olive oil, vegetable oil, butter, bacon fat, whatever you want. So to it, I'm just going to be adding in a little salt, a little pepper, and then I'm actually going to be also adding in some chipotle powder to it. We love chipotles, and so we like just a touch of heat with our food, and plus it just gives it such amazing flavor. And so I'm going to add that into it, and it just gave it a nice little touch. It changes up the breakfast scramble. You can add whatever seasonings you would like to it, but this is how we like to have it.
Follow lights, take me where I wanna visit. Are you alive? Or just breathing? 'Cause I've been living life right like I could just die any minute. Going for a ride down the side, PCH, country limit. I don't need a guide, follow lights, take me where I wanna visit.
Sausage has been browned and my potatoes are where I want them to be, and so you can fry them up as crispy as you would like them, but I had just the right amount of what I was looking for, and then that's it. You can eat them just like that. You can top them with cheese. You can top them with hot sauce. I like to put cheese in tiger sauce on mine. It's however you want to enjoy them.
No end in sight, just always staying on the move. I'll go all night if that's just what I gotta do.
So I just wanted to pop on and say this is really, really good. Now, I do potatoes a lot for breakfast. They're one of my favorites, but just topping a little bit of cheese, tiger sauce, whether you want to use Tabasco sauce, or you don't have to use any of that. You can use ketchup, barbecue, kind of whatever you like with your potatoes, is really good and really filling. Now, you can add in more sausage to it. I know this is a no egg breakfast video. That being said, you can also top it with an egg, and that'll make it stretch just a little bit further. But this is a really good option for like a potato breakfast scramble for you to enjoy for breakfast. Now it's time to start to work on the bagels. So I'm going to start with yeast. Now keep in mind that when you buy yeast packages that are sealed, they are fine, shelf stable until you open them, and then they have to be refrigerated. And so to this bowl, I'm going to be adding in 2 teaspoons of yeast, and to that I'm going to be adding in sugar. Sugar helps to activate yeast. It helps it to grow faster once the warm water has been added to it. So most recipes you will see have sugar added at the same time you put in the yeast. And so to the teaspoons of yeast, I'm going to be adding in 4.5 teaspoons of sugar. And with that, I'm also going to be adding in 1 cup of warm water. And so when you add in the warm water, now some people will check the temperature using a thermometer. I don't do that. I can usually tell by how it feels. And you want it to be a nice, really nice warm bath water, so to speak, is I guess a good way to describe it. You want it nice and warm. You do not want it hot. Hot water will kill the yeast and it won't bloom. And so you want to just make sure it's a really nice warm water that you place in there, and you can give it a quick little stir if needed, and then you're just going to set it aside until it begins to bloom. So now that it has bloomed, this is what it's going to look like. As before, you could see that it was a lot of floating, but you can see the center of the bowl is all bloomed, grouped up together. That's what you're looking for. Once you see that, you can continue on making the bagels. And then so to the yeast, water, and sugar, I'm going to be adding in 1.5 teaspoons of salt. And so this is just regular real salt. It's called, is the brand name. It's just table salt. So also now I'm going to be adding in 3.5 cups of flours. And so with this recipe, I decided to use this European dough whisk to make it, because I wanted to be able to show people how you could make it without having a mixer, because maybe some people don't. And so if you don't have a dough whisk like I do, you could also just use a wooden spoon. You're just basically trying to mix all of the ingredients together. And as you will see, the dough is actually quite firm. And this is the first time I've used this recipe. I've made bagels before, but I was kind of looking at a variety of different ones, trying to find the best one. A recipe I had originally found had no water in it, and I knew there had to be a mistake. There's absolutely no way the yeast could form as well without any water to it. So anyways, but you can just see that this dough is quite stiff. And so to it, I found that I actually needed to add in a little bit of water as I was kneading it together. It just wasn't pulling together like the recipe had said, I should say, it was going to. And so I wind up just working it in the bowl for a little while, and then I will move it to the countertop and continue to work on the dough until it comes together.
Cause I've been living life right like I could just die any minute. Don't pull right down the side, PCH, country limit. I don't need a guide, follow lights, take me where I wanna visit. Are you alive? I'll just breathe in. Cause I've been living life right like I could just die any minute. Don't pull right down the side, PCH, country limit. I don't need a guide, follow lights, red lights, driving at night, windowless ride, feeling alive. Nothing in sight, forever in flight. Follow those lines, we'll make it this time. Blurry street lights, work as a guide to memories that we're making tonight. Oh yeah, we'll make it tonight. Yeah. I'll do anything that I feel like I wanna do. I'm living life like I got nothing left to prove. No end in sight, just always staying on the move. I'll go all night if that's just what I gotta do. Life's too short to care about what you can't afford. Memories are in what you explore, so just don't be ignored. Go ask for more, go ask for more. 'Cause I've been living life right like I could just die any minute. Going for a ride down the side, PCH country limit. I don't need a guide, follow lights, take me where I wanna visit. Are you alive? I'll just breathe in. 'Cause I've been living life right like I could just die any minute. Going for a ride down the side, PCH country limit. I don't need a guide, follow lights, take me where I wanna visit. Are you alive? I'll just breathe in. I'm in a race that everybody's chasing fast. They wanna be that someone on the screen at last. They ain't looking inside for their needs in life. They wanna be liked by everybody in sight. But trust me, being free ain't spotlights. No, it's long nights.
As you can see, the dough has really started to come together, and this is what you're looking for. And once you reach this point, you want to go ahead and put the dough back into your bowl, add just a touch of olive oil to it, and then coat the entire ball of dough with the olive oil. This will help prevent it from sticking to the bowl as it rises. And once you've got a nice coat on it, you're just going to go ahead and set it back in there, and then you're going to just cover it with a towel and then set it aside until it doubles in size. Now for myself, I have a proof option on my oven, so that's how I proof any bread product that I make. But as long as you have a warm spot in your house, you just set it aside and wait for it to double in size, which is what it has now. And it took about an hour in my oven to double in size. Now I'm going to begin to punch it down and then pull it out. I'm just going to work with it just a little bit more, and so I can cut it into sections. Now the original recipe that I found said this only made 8 bagels. I decided to make them just a touch smaller. And so that choice is really up to you on the size of the bagel that you want to make. But here I'm going to go ahead and get all of the portions out that I want from it. And then I will go ahead and get them formed into balls, and then they will proof one more time. My portions now have been cut, and so I'm going to go ahead and I take all of the dough and I start to form it into a ball, and I do that by cupping it in my hand and then pinching the edges together until you get it into a ball, and then you pinch them shut, and I just kind of give it a little roll. These little balls of dough are going to proof again, so while the dough is fairly stiff at this point, it will begin to loosen up a little bit as it goes through its second proofing stage. But you will notice that when you make it, they are fairly stiff. It's not as soft and tender as a bread dough when you're making something like cinnamon rolls or homemade bread. It's a little bit different. But you're just going to go ahead and I pinched off some of the dough because I felt like that one was too big. And so I can just usually tell by holding it what the weight and the size of it is. And so, but you could always weigh them out. I don't feel that it's really 100% necessary. You can just, because you can make these bagels any size that you want. But if you pinch a piece off, you can do exactly what I did, which is just kind of shove it down into the center and pinch the rest of the dough around it, and you won't be able to tell that you did that when these proof the second time and we roll them out. So I'm going to get these finished up, and then we will move on to the next step.
they ain't looking inside for their needs in life. They wanna be liked by everybody in sight, but trust me, being free ain't spotlights. No, it's long nights and it's long fights with yourself all the time to get your mind right. But if you put in the work, you can find the light. Alright, I'll do anything that I feel like I wanna do. I'm living life like I got nothing left to prove. No end in sight, just always staying on the move. I'll go all night if that's just what I gotta do. Life's too short to care about what you can't afford. Memories are in what you explore, so just don't be ignored. Go ask for more, go ask for more. 'Cause I've been living life right like I could just die any minute. Going for a ride down the side, PCH country limit. I don't need a guide, follow lights.
All right, each one of the dough balls have been rolled out, and now I'm going to go ahead and get them covered and let them proof for 30 minutes. And while they're proofing, I'm warming up, or heating up my oven, I should say, to 450 degrees. And I'm also going to get my pan prepped with sesame seeds. Now, depending on how you like your bagels, you could just leave them plain, so you can skip this step altogether. And you don't have to put any sesame seeds on the bottom. This is to place the bagels on the bottom, and that way when they bake sesame seeds on the bottom, and then I'm going to sprinkle some on the top. And that way when you cut it in half, each one has sesame seeds. You don't have to do it this way. This is just kind of a personal preference, excuse me, and this is just one way I wanted to try it. You can top these with everything seasoning, poppy seed, onion, however you would like to do it is how you can. And so now that the dough has been proofed, I'm going to go ahead and get the bagels shaped, and I just have a little bit of flour on the countertop, and as you can see, I poked a hole in the center, and the dough is still somewhat stiff, and so it's softer for sure, but it's still stiff. And so I just poke a hole in it, stretch it out a little bit, and I just spin it around my finger, and then I begin to form the center by stretching it, as you can see. And I'm going to repeat this process. Now, I do tend to make the hole a little bit larger, and that is because as the bagels proof again, that is going to shrink some, and then of course when it goes in the water, it'll shrink a little bit more. So you're just looking for about this size when you're forming the bagels. So I'm going to go ahead and get a sheet sprayed, and I'm going to put all the bagels on here, and then we will move on to the next step.
'Cause I've been living life right like I could just die any minute. Going for a ride down the side, PCH country limit. I don't need a guide, follow lights, take me where I wanna visit. Are you alive? Or just breathing? 'Cause I've been living life right like I could just die any minute. Going for a ride down the side, PCH country limit. I don't need a guide, follow lights, take me where I wanna visit. Are you alive? Or just breathing? Flashing red lights, driving at night, windowless ride, feeling alive. Nothing in sight, forever in flight. Follow those lines, we'll make it this time. Blurry street lights, work as a guide to memories that we're making tonight. Oh yeah, we'll make it tonight. Yeah. I'll do anything that I feel like I wanna do. I'm living life like I got nothing left to prove. No end in sight, just always staying on the move. I'll go all night if that's just what I gotta do. Life's too short to care about what you can't afford. Memories are in what you explore, so just don't be ignored. Go ask for more, go ask for more. 'Cause They wanna be liked by everybody in sight, but trust me, being free ain't spotlights. No, it's long nights and it's long fights with yourself all the time to get your mind right. But if you put in the work, you can find the light. Alright, I'll do anything that I feel like I wanna do. I'm living life like I got nothing left to prove. No end in sight, just always staying on the move. I'll go all night if that's just what I gotta do. Life's too short to care about what you can't afford. Memories are in what you explore, so just don't be ignored. Go ask for more, go ask for more. 'Cause I've been living life right like I could just die any minute. Going for a ride down the side.
All right, my last bagel is being formed, and just know that while you're setting your bagels aside on your sprayed cookie sheet, you want to make sure you keep them covered because you don't want the dough to dry out. And then as you can see, they're all done, and you just keep them covered until you're ready. They do have to proof for I think about another 15 minutes. And then once you start rolling the bagels, you want to get your water boiling. You want to boil 4 cups of water, and once it starts boiling, you're going to actually add in 3 tablespoons of brown sugar, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, and 1 teaspoon of salt. And so some people will use a variety of different things in their water. I like this because it's easy and I have everything in the house and I don't have to purchase anything special. And so this just adds a little extra flavor to it. But by boiling your bagels, what you're doing is you're adding in that chew that a lot of bagels have. And so you could skip this step altogether, proof your bagels, top them, and then put them out in the oven and bake them. But if you like that chew on your bagel, you definitely want to make sure you put them in your boiling water. Now that my brown sugar, baking soda, and salt are added, I'm just whisking it up to make sure that everything dissolves before I add in my bagels to my water. Now, one thing I will say is I looked at a variety of different recipes before making this, and the boiling times varied between each recipe. And so I would say at a minimum, you want to boil them for 30 seconds on each side. I chose to do 40 just to try it. And I feel like next time I make these, I will just do 30, but you guys decide what you want to do. And again, I think the size of the bagel can matter. I made these smaller and I did that intentionally, but if you made a larger bagel, I would say maybe go with the 40 seconds to a minute on each side, but use a recipe that you feel like you're comfortable with. And sometimes with these things, you just need to try different methods and try what works and to get what you're looking for, because everybody likes something a little different. And so this had a wonderful chew on it, excellent flavor, but I would love to do this again, and I likely will, and try it for just 30 seconds to see what that makes a difference in just that 10 seconds of water does to the bagel.
Just always staying on the move. I'll go all night if that's just what I gotta do. Life's too short to care about what you can't afford. Memories are in what you explore, so just don't be ignored. Go ask for more, go ask for more. 'Cause I've been living life right like I could just die any minute. Going for a ride down the side, PCH country limit. I don't need a guide, follow lights, take me where I wanna visit. Are you alive? I'll just breathe in. 'Cause I've been living life right like I could just die any minute. Going for a ride down the side, PCH country limit. I don't need a guide, follow lights, take me where I wanna visit. Are you alive? I'll just breathe in. I'm in a race that everybody's chasing fast. They wanna be that someone on the screen at last. They ain't looking inside for their needs in life. They wanna be liked by everybody in sight, but trust me, being free ain't spotlights. No, it's long nights and it's long fights with yourself all the time to get your mind right. But if you put in the work, you can find the light. Alright, I'll do anything that I feel like I wanna do. I'm living life like I got nothing left to prove. No end in sight, just always staying on the move.
Bagels have been boiled, and now I have topped, when I pulled them out of the water, it's something you guys couldn't see. I placed them on the cookie sheet that had the sesame seeds on. And what I'm doing now, because this is a no egg challenge, typically you would do an egg wash on the top of the bagels and then sprinkle whatever topping you want on it. This time I decided to just do butter. You could just do water. You basically want to get the top of the bagel wet. Now the egg will help brown it and give it a nice golden color, but so will butter, so will a little olive oil. And so again, with this being a no egg pantry challenge, I did not want to use an egg, just to do an egg wash for the top of the bagel. So now I just want to sprinkle on, I like a lot of sesame seeds, so I sprinkle them pretty heavy, but you choose how you want to top your bagel. And then from here, I'm just going to get them onto another cookie sheet and then get them into the oven. And of course, you will see that I divide them into 2 cookie sheets. And the sesame seeds that are on the pan, I'm not saving them because they are wet. And so it's up to you what you choose to do with what you have left over. I find that I don't want to take a chance in saving seeds or trying to dry them and then have it get bacteria on it or kind of turn a little funky. So I just tossed mine out, but you guys decide what you want to do and how you want to top it. And again, I just like to put the sesame seeds on the bottom, because then when I cut it in half, each part of the bagel has sesame seeds on it.
Like I could just die any minute. Going for a ride down the side. PCH country limit. I don't need a guide. Follow lights. Take me where I wanna visit. Are you alive? I'll just breathe in.
Now that the bagels are prepared and on the pan, I'm going to go ahead and place them in my 450-degree oven and I'm going to bake them for about 15 to 20 minutes. You'll want, if you're making smaller bagels, you'll want to start and checking them at 15 minutes to see, but I would not bake them any longer than 20 minutes. And this is the final product. Once you pull them out of the oven, you do want to go ahead and remove them and put them on a cooling rack, because what that does is it allows air to get underneath the bagel and for it to cool properly. If you leave the bread, or I should say the bagel, on the hot pan, what you're doing when it cools is you're creating moisture between the pan and the bagel, because the steam and the heat from the bagel has no way to escape the bottom, and you don't want to sog out your bagel. So go ahead and move them from your cookie sheet onto a cooling rack and let them cool completely, and then you can enjoy them when it's time to have breakfast.
Are you alive? I'll just breathe in.
And here is the final product. These bagels are so good. I will definitely be making them again and tweaking just the boil time, just to kind of play around with it and see what happens. But we really enjoy these bagels. They had a great chew. They were tender on the inside and they were so good, especially toasted. Now, I did enjoy this first one and did not toast it because it was still warm. So I decided to go ahead and just top it with some cream cheese and enjoy it right away. But the next following mornings, I definitely toasted the bagel and then slathered it with cream cheese. But you can enjoy these however you like, with a little bit of butter, some jam. You can turn this into a breakfast sandwich however you want. But this is just another great option for having a no egg breakfast, especially with the prices of eggs. So I just want to thank you guys for joining me in this video and on this journey of a variety of different food ideas that include no eggs. And if you haven't subscribed, please consider doing so, and I will link a couple of videos below and at the end so you guys can check those out. Thank you so much.